Hello, everyone, and welcome to the final episode of Fearless in Faith. What an incredible journey this season has been. Together, we've explored the depths of trusting God, overcoming fear, and living with bold, unwavering faith. Today's episode is one I've been eagerly anticipating because it brings together three amazing individuals who live out their faith in unique and inspiring ways. Living fearless in faith isn't just about the mountaintop moments. It's about walking with God through the valleys, navigating the complexities of daily life, and choosing to trust Him even when the road ahead seems uncertain. Whether it's the challenges of a fast-paced workplace, the struggles of single parenting, or stepping into ministry as a young leader, faith isn't a one-time decision. It's a daily commitment. To help us unpack this idea, I've invited a very special panel of guests. Together, they represent a diversity of life stages, experiences, and callings, but one thing unites them: their deep-rooted trust in God. First, we have Paul Matthews, a seasoned business leader who has spent over 2 decades navigating the corporate world. Paul's story is one of integrity and resilience, showing us what it means to stand firm in faith amidst the pressures and demands of high-stakes decision-making. Next, we're joined by Grace Adams, a courageous single mom who has experienced the highs and lows of life, but continues to hold fast to God's promises. Grace's journey is a testament to the sustaining power of God's grace and the importance of community support in the face of life's challenges. And finally, we have Joshua Lee, a young worship leader who stepped into ministry with a heart full of obedience and a desire to serve. Joshua's story reminds us that no one is too young or too inexperienced to make a difference for God's kingdom. Today's episode will be filled with real stories, practical advice, and uplifting encouragement. Whether you're facing workplace challenges, struggling with personal trials, or feeling called to step out in faith, this conversation is for you. So grab your Bible, maybe a notebook and pen, and get ready to be inspired. Let's dive into what it truly means to live fearless in faith every single day. Paul, Grace, Joshua, thank you for joining us. Let's start with a quick introduction. Paul, you're a business leader. Tell us a little about your journey and how faith shapes your role.
Thank you, Esther. I've been in the corporate world for 20 years, and honestly, balancing faith in a competitive environment isn't always easy. But for me, faith is my anchor. It reminds me of my purpose and keeps me grounded when decisions get tough.
That's powerful, Paul. And welcome to the show, Grace. You're a single mom. How has faith been a part of your journey?
Thanks for having me, Esther. As a single mom, there are moments when it feels overwhelming, but God's strength has carried me through. Faith has been my constant source of hope, especially during the tough days.
And Joshua, as a young worship leader, what has your experience been like stepping into ministry?
Honestly, it's been a journey of trust and obedience. I faced doubts about being too young, but God reminds me that He equips those He calls. Worship is my way of giving back to Him.
Each of you has faced unique challenges. What's one of the biggest challenges you've encountered, and how did your faith help you navigate it?
One of the hardest moments was deciding to stand against unethical practices at work. I knew it could cost me professionally, but I couldn't go against my values. I prayed for courage, and God gave me peace to speak up. In the end, the truth prevailed, and I gained more respect than I could have imagined.
Finances were a major struggle at one point. I remember a time when I didn't know how I'd pay for my son's school supplies. I prayed and trusted God, and out of nowhere, a friend from church offered to help. God's provision has always been timely and abundant.
There were moments when I felt too young to lead worship, or when people questioned my readiness. I overcame it by remembering 1 Timothy 4:12. Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young. God has reminded me time and again that He uses the willing, not the perfect.
Let's shift gears. What are some practical ways you keep your faith alive and strong in daily life?
One thing I do is start every day with a short prayer and a devotion. I also keep sticky notes with Bible verses at my desk as constant reminders of God's promises.
Worship and journaling have been my go-to practices. When I feel overwhelmed, I'll put on worship music and just sit in God's presence. Journaling helps me process my emotions and see how God has been faithful over time.
Consistency in reading the Bible has been key. Even if it's just a few verses, it centers me for the day. I also make it a point to pray with my worship team before every service, asking God to use us to glorify Him.
To wrap up, what's one piece of encouragement you'd like to leave with our listeners?
Don't let fear stop you from standing for what's right. God sees your faithfulness and will honor it, even if it feels hard in the moment.
God's grace is enough. No matter what you're going through, His love and provision will sustain you.
Take that leap of faith. Even if you feel unqualified, trust that God will equip you for the journey He's called you to.
Thank you, Paul, Grace, and Joshua, for sharing your wisdom and stories. And to our listeners, remember, fearless faith isn't about having all the answers. It's about trusting the one who does. As we come to the end of this incredible episode and season 1 of Fearless in Faith, I want to take a moment to reflect on the journey we've taken together. Over the past 10 episodes, we've heard powerful stories of courage, faith, and God's unwavering love. From stepping out of fear to trusting Him in the midst of trials, we've been reminded time and again that we are never alone. I want to extend my heartfelt thanks to each of our guests throughout this season, including today's amazing panel, Paul, Grace, and Joshua. Your willingness to share your stories and wisdom has been a blessing, not just to me, but to every listener tuning in. To our listeners, I cannot thank you enough for being part of this journey. Your support, feedback, and prayers have made this season a success. Whether you've been listening from the start or just joined us recently, I pray that these conversations have inspired you to live boldly and fearlessly in your faith. But this is not the end. I'm thrilled to share that Season 2 of Fearless in Faith is already in the works, and we have so much in store for you. We'll dive even deeper into what it means to live a life rooted in God's love, with more incredible guests, stories, and practical insights to encourage you in your walk with Christ. So, stay tuned for updates on our next season, and in the meantime, keep living fearless in faith every day. Remember, God has a purpose for your life, and He is always with you, equipping and empowering you to walk in His plans. Thank you again for being part of this journey. May God bless you abundantly, and until we meet again in Season 2, stay rooted, stay courageous, and stay fearless in faith.